uniforms folded, flag hangs on the wall. Traded steel and thunder for silence in the hall. The mission's over, the deployment's done, they said, but the war inside my head, it hasn't left instead. Got the handshake, the thank you, the ticket back home. Now I'm standing on the sidewalk, feeling utterly alone. This freedom is a cage that I can't seem to break. Every single morning it's a future I might forsake. Lost the rhythm, lost the drive, the structure disappeared. The invisible wounds are the ones that I truly feared. I'm walking on a wire, the pressure's coming down. Is there anyone listening in this lonely town? Full speed ahead after battle.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Full Speed Ahead After Battle here on the Military Broadcast Radio, where we give veterans a voice. March 23rd, it's another Monday. Great episode last week, a lot of great feedback, but we've got another great guest tonight, two of them this time, some senior chiefs from the Navy. It's going to be a full Navy show tonight. But before we get to that, we're going to put out the numbers that we put out every week. 22 veterans committing suicide every single day. But as we've talked about in recent episodes, the new report out shows that 17 and a half veterans, it's gone down from 22, 17 and a half veterans on average committing suicide every day. However, that's still 17 and a half too much. And a lot of that, one of the major causes of that is that transition from service to civilian life, which we all know as veterans is very difficult, no matter how much you plan for it. Some of us wait until it's too late. Some of us try to do it before we get out. But as the saying goes, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And sometimes that civilian life is that punch in the mouth. For certain people, when you get out when you least expect it, like some of our stories tonight, changes things a little bit more. When you thought you were going to make a career out of the military and life happens, things happen that are beyond our control, things that we still struggle with, and we're going to talk about that as well. But also other studies, 1.6 million, almost 1.6 million veterans in Texas alone, largest state in the United States for our veteran population. Here in DFW, we're the third largest area out of the state of Texas for veterans. And that's why I do what I do, whether it's with this show or District 21 VFW, Suicide Awareness Chair, working with our veterans, especially when we have that local base over here. Many of the old timers know it as Carswell, but now it's the Joint Navy Air Force Base out there. So large veteran population that needs that help out there, along with the leading cause being that transition. It's also the lack of the VA. A lot of veterans, nearly 60% of veterans in Texas alone, do not get signed up for that VA healthcare. And that's where we all start to struggle. Everybody thinks it's not for them or others deserve it more than them. That's just not the case. Whether you're served or not, if you're eligible, get signed up at the VA. You're not taking benefits or money away from anyone else, no matter what they tell you. Some people heard horror stories about the VA. While some of that is true, there are some good ones out there, and especially now that they are sending you out to community partners for your CMP exams or just medical visits alone. They're definitely a lot better. I can attest to that. Going locally here, so much better than driving all the way to the Fort Worth VA. But anywho, what's been going on this last week? As you all know, I'm about a month into the new job. or I call it a hobby. It's something that's more passionate to me, working with these animals at the county shelter under the Wise County Sheriff's Department. This week, we held our auction for our livestock that we had. A couple of horses and a goat that we auctioned off. Funny thing about those horses, trying to load them up on Sunday on the lady's trailer that purchased them. Not a fun time. 2 horses, really skittish, did not want to play well with the people. Turns out, if anybody knows anything about horses and how that goes, but the particular mare had a freeze brand from the BLM, which is the Bureau of Land Management here in Texas and across the nation. But that means that mare is actually a Mustang coming off of the state property. And so that is why she did not want to work very well with us. But she also had a colt with her, very protective of that. So definitely an interesting time with that. Along with that, I had a good conversation with a good mentor of mine that's in this area I've known for many years now. And it kind of reminded me that the military is not just the only place for Blue Falcons. They reside in the civilian life as well. And so just talking to him about a few things going on, and he definitely talked me down off that ledge, and I appreciate that. That's why, I tell y'all every week, reach out to people. You're not doing this alone. Sometimes it's talking with that person that's been there and done that before. They can kind of set the perspective straight for you. So you don't have to deal with those issues alone. But other than that, not a whole lot going on this week. The new job has got me working a lot every day, putting together a new volunteer program there at the shelter. Had an orientation last week with several volunteer guests that want to come in and help the shelter out, which, if you know anything about county shelters, we heavily rely on our volunteers and donations. And so building that program just for the volunteers has been a huge success so far. And now also working on putting together a veteran volunteer program, something that we can get some veterans out there to work with our animals, as well as throwing in some coaching and mental health coaching, things like that. That way it both benefits our animals and our veterans in the local area. If you know anything about our county or area, while we have some veteran groups, we're heavily lacking in that area. So I kind of taken it on as a personal passion, mission of mine, to help veterans in Wise County, just because I think they need it. We all need it, but yeah, so that's what we're working on that way. Coming up next month, I've been talking about this, April 18th, Battle Buddy Throwdown at Post 8235. It's a cornhole tournament. All funds raised are going to the Fort Worth chapter of the Irreverent Warriors. They'll be there, as well as a local doctor in his clinic. They'll be giving pressure point massages free of charge to anybody coming. MBR will be there with their table, their diet-tired shirts. Proceeds are going towards veterans. We'll also have band, Last Call out there, a veteran band coming out. So make sure you stop by. You can find us on eventbrite.com at Battle Buddy Throwdown Cornhole Tournament. Come on, check us out, April 18th at 8235. Other than that, I know we're going to have a great discussion tonight. Like I said, it's going to be a full Navy show. So why don't we go ahead and bring our guests on? We're going to introduce them. We've got Leah and Geoff. Should probably figure that out before the show, right, Senior? But we'll get to that. But these guys, they've got they come together. They got a similar story, and it's something a little surprising that I think most people never thought that they would hear out of senior leadership in the enlisted ranks. But they're here to share their stories, helping others out. And so we're going to go to our interview of the week.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Seniors, welcome to the show. Full speed ahead. How y'all doing?
Doing great.
Doing good. You got one senior chief and you got a master chief here too.
Well,
No, I wasn't going to go there. It's fine.
I was going to say we got a bubblehead, but
Yeah.
You're right. I messed that up. I got stuck on the senior part and then I skipped over the chief of the boat thing. I'm like, it'd be all right. No.
You know, I retired with the high 3 system, and I think I was only a master chief for 2 years, so I'm 2/3,
Yeah.
I guess. So
Yeah.
you got it.
Only.
work.
Don't take that from yourself, bro.
Only. Only. Well, welcome tonight. Leah, we're talking again. We've talked before on Eva's show a little bit about your story tonight, but I'm glad to have you back and share your story again on my show. We focus on the transition, and I think you both have a unique perspective on the transition because, Leah, I know for sure you were not ready to get out, and so things were a little bit more difficult for you. And so why don't we just jump right into it? And Leah, I'll let you start it off. Introduce yourself and who you are, where you're from, all that good stuff.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, I am from upstate New York, cold area up there in the Albany area, and joined the Navy when I was 21. A little bit later, and really was excited about leaving New York. That was part of the gig of wanting to do that. And then when I found out that the Navy had photographers, I was all in on that. So really cool experience getting to be a photographer. And I did have a really amazing, exciting career. And I did plan on going a lot longer. My body gave out a little bit too soon and derailed what I thought was the best plans. As you said, we all have the best laid plans. Right. And even when I did realize that I was getting out, I thought that I put together another really, fail-safe plan. I'm really type A personality. I love to have all the plans. And even then I got to realize that, life took some different turns and directions. And, but I have to say that, in hindsight and looking back and putting some space between me and my transition, into civilian life, that I'm thankful for the way that it all worked out. I'm thankful for the twists and the turns and the pivots. And there were definitely days where I couldn't even imagine I'd ever say that. There were days that I was just in dark, low places. And it does get better. It does get better.
It does. It does. And all those experiences just make you into the person you are today. And now you're helping people. And I've always thought that, everything happens for a reason, and whatever that reason may be, we don't know, but here you are. Your reason is SeaWaves, helping other people, and you're just kicking ass over there. I'm seeing you all over the place these days. So,
I'm trying.
Great. I know you are. Mass Chief, how about you?
All right. Yeah, so my name's Geoff Walker. I joined the Navy in January of 2000 out of the Los Angeles MEPS. I grew up just north of LA. You can probably hear that when I say like too much and, in all my dialogue. I am a Californian at heart, even though I'll probably never wind up back there. But yeah. And I was on 4 different submarines, did a bunch of deployments on subs. I was all fast attack submarines. Similar to, Leah, to echo that, my career didn't necessarily end the way that I wanted it to, but I don't look back on my time in the Navy, with lament or regret or anything, because that all kind of shaped, the person that I am today and the things that I value in life. And, it was overall a good thing. And transitions challenging and complex, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about as far as, our journeys. So I don't know, probably, I don't know how we want to segue into Leah and I's stories intersecting. Not, but
no, you're good. I got into, my big help, or what I want to help with the veterans, is that transition, because I was expecting to stay in 20 years as well. I got out at 8 years because under Obama, they were downsizing heavily. at that time. And so, as many people, I guess the Navy's a little bit different in their rank advancement, right? You take the test and you can pass it, but you still don't advance because you don't get high enough. And so I was advancing, but not hitting that sweet point. And after so many times, you're out, right? And they just kick you out. And so that's what happens to a lot of sailors, and you're not ready for that transition. And here you are. What do you do next, right? And so I think all three of us have that unique perspective of we weren't ready to get out. We got out because somebody else or our body said no, and we had to figure out what to do. And I ended up sleeping on my old man's couch, and trying to figure out what to do from there. And finally, I'm doing all right. But let's talk about you two. What was your extenuating circumstances that said your time's up and you got to figure out something else now?
Sure. So Leah, do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. So Leah and I actually met in treatment together. I struggled with an eating disorder while I was in the Navy. I developed it in the Navy because of the Navy. I did not have an eating disorder beforehand. Specifically, my drug of choice was bulimia nervosa. It sort of started out as a means of sort of an augmentation to the workout stuff. I just, as I got more senior and came up for making chief and stuff, I desperately did not want to have that, black eye on my record. So I started kind of doing those behaviors, and it just sort of manifested into something significantly more than just a means of like controlling weight. So I fought with that for about 10 years. Kept it hidden, as most people that struggle with eating disorders are very good at hiding it. I was on my COB tour, chief of the boat, which is effectively like a first sergeant or a command master chief on a submarine, senior enlisted, advisor to the captain. I was about 2 years into my COB tour, and I realized that I was not in control of this, monster that was on my back, and that it was just making me, I was not the best version of myself for my family, for my crew, for my sailors, for myself. So I raised my hand and I said, hey, I'm struggling with something and I don't know how to get a hold of it. Fortunately, I don't know. I think some of it, and there's probably barriers that might exist for sailors that are, of a more junior rank. I was taken pretty seriously when I came forward and said it. The embedded mental health guy that we had at the squadron there in Pearl Harbor. Wonderful, wonderful guy. His name's Matt Raridan. He's Doc as I always knew him. He was the embedded mental health guy. I had a really good relationship with him because I was a big believer in people getting help, on the mental health front while they were in to, sort of doing the preventative maintenance of our minds, in order to stop things from getting to the point where they're out of control. As it turns out, I was pretty terrible at following my own advice. But anyways, when I went up and talked to him and we went through, like what the behaviors were, how frequent the behaviors were, it was like, hey, we really gotta get a hold of this, and hit this hard. Because this is going to kill you. So I was lucky and fortunate enough to find a treatment center that took male patients. And that treatment center was called Veritas Collaborative at the time. I think it's the Emily program now, right, Leah? Yeah, they got changed to a different school and different program kind of absorbed them. But anyways, this hospital facility had like 24 beds, maybe something like that. And then 2 chief petty officers wound up in there. And that was sort of the genesis of Leah and I's relationship, where it was sort of like, hey, like, what are the odds that there's 2, people that are in the military that, and, obviously having the connection is, as chief petty officers helped. But like, there's something going on here because as we talked, our stories were, very similar.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we met in treatment. We both have our own journeys on, recovery and how we came to where we're at and all that. I ultimately decided that I wasn't going to be able to maintain recovery and, meet the requirements that were there, that I needed to do in order to function as a command master chief petty officer, moving forward. So I made that determination at that time that like, hey, it's been a fun ride. I was already over 20. So I elected to, medically process out at that time. So, and I transitioned out. That was, I transitioned, man, almost 5 years ago, which sounds crazy because it still feels like it was yesterday.
Right.
Retired out of Pearl Harbor, moved out of South Carolina for a couple of years, worked in a steel plant, doing fabrication for the Navy on aircraft carrier stuff. And then ultimately I wound up taking a job up here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. I live in central Maryland, closer to Baltimore, actually, probably. But I'm a defense contractor. I do software development and testing for submarine trainers now. So, and I got 6 kids, all under the age of 18. So I'm pretty busy. That's my excuse as to why I don't get to help out as much. But, I actually got recently involved with my VFW recently. I've kind of come back to where when I first got out, it was like I wanted nothing to do with any of that stuff just because I felt a lot of shame. It's stupid that, like, when you're over 20 years old, or over 20 years in and you're a master chief and you feel like you failed,
right.
Or that like you've let people down or something. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I'm sort of like, man, I don't know anybody a goddamn thing,
Right.
I did the hard thing. I did well at it. Ultimately, I had some stuff that I needed to get fixed on the medical side, but I don't, like I said, I don't look back on any of it with anger. So, but
yeah. No, absolutely. Living life, man. So you remind me of my grandpa, I guess. Every time you came in port, that's when you had another child, right? Every 9 months or so.
I joke that like I just have to wink at my wife and a kid will pop out of her. So
this must be those submarine thing, right?
I'm actually split on the boy-girl thing. So that used to be the thing. I think there's some sort of like data out there that like something with the CO2 levels, or I don't know, that like submariners have a higher likelihood of having girls. Like there's a lot of like submariners that are like, how many kids you got? Oh, I got 3 girls. So I got an even split though. I'm all right.
Yeah. But I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that, it took you a while to figure it out that you feel bad because, the way you got out. But then in the end, it's, you did 20 plus years, you did your job, you did more than what most people would ever dream of doing. And so there's no shame in that. I mean, we've all got our own mental, physical demons or whatever you want to call them, but it's when you start owning them and start living up and sharing your story that helps other people and that you can finally be at peace with yourself. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I was very, oh, sorry. I was very,
no, you're good. You're good. Go
on my way out with the guys and stuff. I say the guys because I was on a fast boat that was all guys, so I'm using that term correctly. But I was very transparent about it, because I felt like it was important that even in the course of getting help, that I tried to set an example and set a standard in that.
Yes.
And since then, I've had a lot of sailors of mine reach out to me and just say, hey, Master Chief, thanks for being honest because, I saw what you did. It enabled me to find, the strength to go out and ask for help with this thing that I was dealing with. And that means like the world to me. That means so much more than anything else, any operational thing that I did or whatever, just to know where there's like a kid out there that was like, hey, it mattered, that you were still thinking of us, on your way out. So,
and no, that's, for the longest time, the Chiefs were looked at as like almost, I don't want to say cult, but what happens in the chief mess stays in the chief mess. You look out for each other and, you sweep things under the rug and you guys can never do any kind of bad, right? That was always the, the rumors that, y'all can't get in trouble for anything, but it definitely means a lot to the junior guys and girls, when you start seeing khaki step up and admitting that, hey, look, we need to take care of something. We need to have this discussion. It's not just us. There's other people. And, there's people like y'all out there that are killing yourselves to stay underweight when you still see some khakis and other people out there that are 500 pounds. And it's like, how are you guys staying in doing what you do when there's people like us trying to kill ourselves to be able to stay in? It just, doesn't make sense. There's a lot of questions and resentment, I think, from some of the people. But yeah, Leah, your story. I don't want to lose you.
So no, there's a lot of similarities, and there's some differences. One of the differences with me is that I had my eating disorder before service. I was 11. But I was at an event on Friday, and we saw in the chat there, Eva said, hey Leah, long time no see. Eva has, another podcast. And I saw her at this event at the Military Women's Symposium in North Carolina. And they, this is the Valkyrie Project, and they put out this whole research data that they've been doing, and they put out that 65% of women, now granted, this is the Military Women's Symposium, this doesn't mean that this isn't impacting our males, because clearly it is, but the data on the women's side was that 65% stated that they have to do things to shrink their body to feel like they're within standards. But it also showed that 81% had a distorted view of what the standards were for their body. So Geoff's point of this developed as a way of navigating standards, and then it kind of grows into other things. Like he uses very distinct words that if you clue in on it, I think it's A, part of my public affairs background, and B, part of my neurodivergence, that I clue in on like certain words. And he said, my drug of choice. And that is, oh my goodness, that just says so much in that, is because we look at coping mechanisms, right? So there's a whole bunch of reasons and ways that eating disorders develop. One huge indicator, the main indicator that they see, is intentional weight loss. Dieting is the main indicator of developing an eating disorder. And so then you start doing these things, they become coping mechanisms, right? The military says zero drug policy. True. Great. Next. Then we say, hey, we teach people how to not misuse alcohol. Okay. Now, I mean, whether that works or not in the Navy, probably a completely different conversation than maybe some of the other branches. Yeah. And then next, moving on, what's not illegal? Right? Like, what can you control, whether you're on a ship or a submarine or in deployment, you can control food. And by the way, when one of the impacts of using this as a control also helps you remain within standards, now this glamorizes it even more. And so, like you said, are there some chiefs that are protected or that are not having to meet standards? Sure. Are those the ones that we probably talk about a lot? Sure. I don't think that that's the majority whatsoever. And a lot of us, especially the people that took that role and advancement very seriously, that almost made me worse in my eating disorder, because I had so much respect for the anchors and the uniform and setting the tone and setting the role. So not only did I want to just not fail, right, and as just said, have that black eye in my record or on myself, or be considered that, I also wanted to be the smallest version of myself, because to me, that was the most professional. That was the best. That's what made the khakis look the best. So it wasn't even just pass or fail. It was, if I'm going to step on that scale in front of junior sailors, peers, my boss is walking by, that goes in my, that's going to be the lowest number that I can make it, because it's going to get written down and put in my record. So that was a whole tangent to say, the difference was had my eating disorder earlier on in life. I thought that I was better from it when I joined. And then for all the reasons that we just talked about, it just kind of wasn't something I could leave in my past. And so for me, it was a combination of anorexia and purging. That's now we now have a diagnosis for that. In the beginning of my career, we didn't. That's called OSFED. It falls under OSFED. And this is other than specified, not otherwise specified eating disorder. Basically, what that means is that I didn't completely qualify for anorexia because there's a weight requirement for that. Less than 6% of people with an eating disorder fall into the underweight category, but for that diagnosis, you do. And I didn't qualify for a bulimia diagnosis because I had never experienced binge episodes. And so I didn't qualify for that. So for a long time, there really wasn't even an eating disorder diagnosis in the diagnostic criteria for me. And so it kind of came to that same thing as with Geoff of just, I pushed as hard as I could, as long as I could, as far as I could, until my mind and my body said like, danger, danger, danger. I ignored that car maintenance light that we see. I ignored that for a really long time for all the other reasons. Another difference between me and Geoff, and actually Geoff's transparency and bravery had a big impact on me working through this, but I really, really struggled to tell my team anything. And so when I left my ship to go to treatment, nobody knew what the reason was. I lied, denied, cried, distracted, all the things. There's just so much shame, and thinking that I could handle it on my own, and I didn't want to have to explain it, and I didn't want to have to say it out loud, all the way up into I even founded my organization. I truly wanted to be able to found this organization and not be the face of it and not have to admit my own eating disorder. It's taken a lot of uncomfortable moments and growth, and Geoff being so open and transparent, even on social media, because you got to think I have a public affairs background, so I was really trained to put personal stuff on social media,
right?
And, all those things I'm extra, or was now, and seeing his example of no, if this causes just one more person to talk about it, or one more person to seek help, or one more leader to be able to recognize it in their person, or a family member to be able to recognize it in their person, like eating disorders thrive in the dark. They grow like that, like mold, right? Like in the dark. And so that's really why we say like shining a light on it. We're like shining a light so that people can learn about it, educate about it, so it doesn't grow like that. And to just kind of expose something that a lot of people have been commenting lately on different things of, my gosh, this has been held in secretiveness for so many decades. So seeing him on my first day of treatment, he was there before I was, and he called me sis, and I knew that he knew that I knew that he knew that we were in the Chiefs mess, and I was like, oh my god,
a secret code y'all got.
We had a little code. We
did the handshake.
But it was important because I felt like I just felt like so alone. I didn't belong. I felt like nobody there spoke like the military language or the Navy language, or like you said, our own little code language. So to have somebody there, and then it kind of already confirmed what I was already sort of knowing through my leadership of, I could recognize eating disorders in other people. I mean, I'm no doctor, so I don't diagnose anybody, but I was recognizing these behaviors because I came in with this diagnosis, right? And so seeing two of us active duty, actually from the same base even, there was like, okay, there's more. And that's what led me after discharge to start doing more research, to then think about, and also my journey to getting treatment was much more difficult. And so my process, my thought was, if me as a senior chief had difficulty accessing life-saving resources, then who else?
Right. So Geoff, what made it so easy for you to come out and say it before you left? Unlike, Leah said she had to try and almost hide it from her commander. Was it just more of I want to be, I want to show set the example?
So I think that there was a lot. I mean, the submarine community is a pretty small community. So when I got taken off, it wasn't like I walked off the brow and was like, hey, I threw up walking across the brow or something, but it was very taboo, for if a cob leaves his job. There's only like 10 of them or whatever, or a dozen of them on the waterfront at any given time. And those guys all know each other, and it's very like it was a lot of like whispers, is like what happened and like all this stuff. So I kind of like wanted to like clear the air with it. That, and I think Leah talked about it a little bit, just about like how like the eating disorders thrive in isolation. The secretive nature of it is so prohibitive to so many people getting help. It's sort of like giving it a name, calling it what it is. And then for me personally, community was probably the number one thing that helped me start on my journey to recovery. It was being with other people. I was so terrified too, because it's like, here I am, 38 years old at the time, father of 5 at the time, and I'm, a fairly straight guy. I'm a sonar tech, so whatever. There's always jokes about us.
Especially the
what happens on deployment, whatever. Anyways, so to like, what the hell am I going to have in common with anybody at this treatment facility? Right? Because only women get eating disorders.
I was going to ask, is that, Leah, is that what maybe kind of shuts you down from wanting to open up? Because everybody, when they hear a female has an eating disorder, it's like, go figure. They all do. But when the guy comes out and says it, it's like, no, guys don't get eating disorders. It's almost like there's a stigma between the two. I mean, so I don't want to say all girls have eating disorders. I'm saying some people, their minds go, well, it's a female, of course, because in the Navy, it's still up to a point was still the old school, right? But
Leah touched on it, right, about the behaviors or having a poor body image or whatever. Yeah, sure, that's stronger in women, but men struggle with that too. We just suck about talking about it, like everything else, right?
But there you go.
I can't tell you how many guys I've had tell me afterwards, or just through just being open about it, like, hey, I struggled with that too. I think a very important thing to touch on, and one of the key things that I want to talk about with like the awareness aspect of just how prevalent this is in the military and why this is a breeding ground. You traditionally associate eating disorders with professions that place a high emphasis on body image. All right. So, typically you'd think, well, yeah, actors, dancers, models, but then start thinking about like the male aspect of it. Wrestlers, divers, people that do UFC where you have to make a certain weight by a certain place. I guarantee you in that community, it is a problem as well. But to circle back to the military aspect of it, the military places an extremely high emphasis on body image, whether or not we like to think about it or not. And even from like the male perspective, I can tell you that every time you get your dress uniform out, that's your little black dress. Especially if you're a senior, where you have like a public facing image as you move into more leadership roles. And there's so many other things, that can lead to the inception of these within the ranks. I think it's also very important to think for men as well that eating disorders don't always manifest just through like disordered eating behaviors, right? With men, oftentimes it's a combination of another thing, which is exercise. Leah, I don't remember what the technical term for that is, right? Is it exercise anorexia or something like that?
It could fall under orthorexia.
Okay. So it's the exercise. And that's one of the ways that I like to describe it. So it's like, I never failed a PRT. I made sure of that through my eating disorder and because I was a runner. I ran a lot, and part of what was always going on in my head was basically, it's like the task manager for your Windows machine. No matter what I was doing, there were always processes that were running, and those processes were things like, okay, I just had a Cliff Bar, that's 220 calories. If I get on the elliptical for 45 minutes, at this clip or whatever, I can burn 550. So that's 240 minus 550. Okay, that puts me in a net negative, of whatever. I'm not doing math in my head because I don't have to.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it's too much math.
And then it's like, then I had a banana. Okay, a banana's 60 calories. All right. And then it's like, oh, and then I purged, whatever I ate. So that's another minus 500 calories. But if I go run 5 miles, then I'm going to be able to, burn another 200. So it's like that was constantly going on in my head. And the exercise aspect of it is a way in which it manifests a lot of the times in men. So I think that's a little bit, I wanted to touch on that, specific to the male aspect of it, touching on that professions that place an emphasis on body image. When you step back and you think about it, when most people hear that and they're like, oh shit, yeah, the military is exactly that. Then you factor in like what the root cause of eating disorders actually is, which is not, it's not the food. It's a self-critic. It's an inner critic.
Yeah.
It's a control thing. And so if you have a strong inner critic, which is generally what successful people have, because successful people are people who hate themselves more than, the person next to them, or hate themselves more than their own worst enemy. And you're constantly worried about failing, and you're unable to celebrate victories, and you're unable to relax, and you're always worried about what the next thing coming around the corner is. If you act like that in a leadership role or, in a professional capacity, you're going to be really good at your job. You're going to be sought after, and you're going to do well because all those things are constantly running. But that's where like the eating disorder thing comes in. And that's why it's not about food. Nobody hates me more than myself.
So let's get into the transition talk then, because as we said earlier, both of y'all had kind of unexpected getting out, right? You weren't planning for it. And you would think when senior enlisted like yourselves are getting out, you've got game plans, you've got the experience, you can easily jump into something different. But disorders, I'm sure, do not go away. So it's something you're constantly managing. And then now you're in a whole new world of a place that you don't know, trying to find your new mission, your new purpose in life. And so what was it that kept y'all going or got you going? Was it the networking with your family? Was it each other or shipmates? Or, what helped you get going in your new purpose in life?
I'll take that one first, bro. For me, it was a lot of flailing around until I founded SeaWaves. Because what that did for me was it gave me a purpose. It gave me something to build. It gave me a creative outlet. It gave me a reason. It really filled like the need. And so, and that was not on my plan whatsoever. Like, so, we talked about this, and on Eva's show, that my husband and I ended up aligning it to where we were retired the very same day. And we moved to Florida that day. And I remember like, once I accepted the fact that I was not going to fight the medical discharge, because I had hit my 20 years as well. Kind of similar to Geoff too, of just like, I know I can't have recovery and be in the military. So I had originally thought that I would, as soon as I could get my strength back and I was feeling better, that I would fight that discharge and keep going. And then I realized I just couldn't have both. So we aligned it for me to move here. And the reason why we moved to Florida was because I was just hell bent. I did public affairs, in the Navy, and I was just hell bent that I was going to do public affairs for Disney World. So I live just, 8 minutes from Disney. But I retired during COVID, and they were firing. They certainly were not hiring. And so, I tried a few different things, and, there was a period of time where I literally sat on my couch all day long, staring straight ahead at the TV, and the TV was never on for months. I looked at a blank TV all day long, just staring straight ahead for months, and I just couldn't move or have a purpose or anything. And the idea of even
Right.
leaving the house or going to an appointment, it was just paralyzing me. I just couldn't do any of it. And so, a few things that led together, and it was actually when I did tell my story on social media, when I kind of came out with everything, and it created that movement of so many people reaching out to me and saying, hey, me too, or that's my sister, or that's my shipmate, or that's my uncle.
Mhm.
And all the questions kind of led to the same place of, okay, so we just admitted, we have this thing and we want to get better, but like, now what? Like, where do we go? What do we do?
Yeah.
And the place that Geoff and I met at, they don't even take TRICARE anymore, and there's not the name, the same place, anything. So I didn't have an answer to anybody's now what. So, I just kind of thought about it and I talked to a couple mentors, and I was like, I wish that something like this existed. And of course they gave me the speech of, if not you, then who? When that clicked of, if not me, then who? I just went all in. Again, blame it on my neurospicy brain and a little bit of OCD and, going all in. But when I did that, there was a lot of failures. It was hard. I do not want to
Yeah.
glamorize, starting something, from the ground up, because that's hard too. But it gave me something every single day. There was something I could work on, build, reach out, anything like that. That is really when I saw the shift in myself.
Yep. Geoff?
I think I was fortunate in some ways that I was able to do a lot of work in treatment towards the tail end of my career that I did not have to do on, post getting out. So I'm not advocating by any means that, find a way to get yourself into treatment before you retire. That's a terrible idea. But no, one of the key things that kind of coincided with my recovery that helped a lot with my transition as well is sort of like a values realignment and rediscovering myself.
Right.
Because I think it gets worse the longer that you're in. But you tie so much of your self-worth to your professional identity within the military. And that boils down to everything from rank to the medals that you wear on your chest. We're always able to like take one look at somebody else and immediately like ascertain like what their value is. I could look at somebody and I don't see sea service ribbons and I'm like, they're useless. Like, so it's like,
you weren't real Navy then. So
you find ways to, incorporate tribalism and stuff. But so anyways, with that values work though, I was able to discover where Master Chief Walker ended and where Geoff was at. And it turns out like Geoff really likes art. Geoff likes skateboarding. Geoff loves his family. Geoff doesn't like lying to his wife. And those are all things that were, misaligned, because of my eating disorder that I wasn't, just sort of like hiding or masking or compensating for things. So I did a lot of that work kind of before getting out. But I think values work, rediscovering who you are. The sooner you can do that in your transition, the better, because the things that are going to bring you joy, because you have the opportunity to do those things now, the sooner you find those things out and disconnect your professional identity from your self-worth in a very drastic way, the better your transitions going to be.
Yeah, because you can keep some of those things that you were while you served, but you've got to understand that now that you're out, it's a whole different ballgame, right? You're not waking up and putting on a uniform and doing the same thing every day, 3 meals a day, and now you have the options of what to do. So you've got to find that new passion of yours or that new mission in life and focus on that and what's important to you, what's going to make you happy now, instead of just taking orders all day every day.
It's really important too for, I think, senior folks, because the longer that you're in, the more entrenched that you are inside of the system, the more distance it is between your authentic self and who the military made you.
Right.
So that gets harder. And it's a lot of people too. It's a big culture shock. is just how little anybody gives a crap about what your rank is. Even if, like, it's funny, I joke around. I work with a bunch of guys that, are E5s, E4s, E6, and those guys run circles around me at work. Like I joke with them, like, this is their opportunity to haze a master chief, because they're great guys. I love working with them, but like, they're smarter than me, and nobody gives a crap about, the fact that I was a master chief.
Right.
They give me more shit for it actually than anything. Yeah.
So Leah, let's get back to SeaWaves real quick. Let's talk about SeaWaves and how you're out there helping those that need the help now, because everybody's reaching out to you. I know it.
Yeah. So, first thing about SeaWaves that's usually surprised people, that SeaWaves is a acronym, and that's important because each letter says exactly what we do. So it's support, education, awareness, wellness, advocacy, and validation for eating disorders and suicide prevention. Well, let's just look at the first three. We'll keep it simple there. The support part. So we connect the military community, whether it's active duty, veterans, family members, with whatever eating disorder informed resources they might need. So whether it's a support group, a therapist, a treatment center, anything like that. So we connect them with that level of care. The E is for education, and we developed a program called MEDAL. It's the Military Eating Disorder Awareness and Literacy. This is NADAC accredited, so you get CE credits for it. And we teach this to everywhere from military leadership to clinicians, providers, dietitians, veteran service organizations, et cetera. Just, eating disorder 101 of, what does this look like, especially how does it manifest in the military community? Because, we talked about active duty, we talked about veterans, but let's also mention that spouses and children are 3 times more likely to have an eating disorder than civilian counterparts. So we got the education piece out there, and then we have the awareness of that, shining that light on what this is. And so we have a bunch of different campaigns, or that's why you said you see me all over the place. Is, we just want to make it a safe place that we can talk about this, that this is a thing. It's impacting a lot of us. And, and then along with the awareness piece, I wanted to, have a place where we had the data that's coming forward of how this is impacting our military community, and have a place where we talked about, a little bit of my story, other people's stories. And so there's a snapshot of Geoff and everything. And so I wrote a book for awareness, Battle Scars and Body Wars. And that, also is just a place to have, each chapter really starts off with, a story, but then it goes into data, information, and resources. Each chapter ends on with different resources, where to learn more, where you can read another book or a podcast or another organization, and just more tools for the toolbox. So as we go and we grow, because we're only 3 years old, what we're really focused on doing is filling that gap in information, that gap in knowledge, the gap in accessible resources, and be able to, be that place and that safe place where people can ask questions, they can get confidential screenings, they can get connected to care.
That's awesome. So I did put that in the comments, and we got it here on the screen, sea-waves.org. That's sea-waves.org, or you can find it on Amazon, Battle Scars and Body Wars, the book. So make sure y'all go check that out for Leah. So Leah, that's amazing. I know SeaWaves has definitely helped out a lot of people. I've been following y'all for, ever since we talked on Eva's show, and seeing how y'all are coming so far in such a short time. It's amazing. And, I appreciate both of y'all setting the example for senior leadership, speaking up and speaking out and showing others it's okay to come forward, right? Because I think we need more of that, especially in the military, that, that really pushes that we're a team here. You're not in this alone. You're not doing this alone. Come talk to us. We can get you the help that you need. You don't have to suffer through it, right? So normally I'd wait a couple minutes, but we got 2 guests tonight. And so this is the time of the show that I like to run our guests through the 2-minute drill, right? So I want to give each of y'all kind of 2 minutes to speak your mind and your heart and your soul to the people out there of whatever you think it is that you need to manifest into this world, whether it's focusing on transition or getting help with eating disorders or just being a good person. Let's go. Geoff, I'll let you start out since we kicked it off with Leah tonight.
Sure. So I think that my message is that recovery is about perspective, right? It's about how you frame things. And this applies for eating disorder recovery, any form of recovery. You can take two pieces of information, right? And so I'll use a eating disorder frame of reference here. But again, like I said, this applies to alcohol, drugs, anything like that, pornography, if that's a thing. So I could say, be in recovery, and what I've used to determine whether or not I'm in a state of recovery. I've been in recovery for 5 years now. Recovery, when you are in a state of recovery, it's taking a piece of information, and that information could be, I had a purge after a week, and I can sit there and I can say, well, I fucked it all up. I had a purge. I'm a piece of shit. I ruined it. Sorry, I said the F word. I remember you said not to do that. I apologize.
It's all right.
I screwed it all up, right? And that piece of information, I can frame it like that. Or I can take that same piece of information and say, oh my God, I went a week without having a purge. That's amazing. Okay, how long can I go next time? And that's recovery. And the next time, maybe you go 2 weeks, maybe you go a month, maybe you go 5 days. And then if it's like that, then you say, oh, I've only done it twice within the last, you know what I'm saying? Like, you take the exact same mathematical information, distance yourself from it, and frame it in such a fashion that it doesn't have that negative connotation with it. Right? Yeah. You didn't screw up. You went an entire month. Could you imagine 4 years ago thinking that you'd ever go that, you know what I'm saying? I never thought I'd ever be able to go that far without having a slip. And now it's been a couple years for me. Yeah. And if it happens,
awesome.
Yeah. If it happens, I'm going to frame it like that. Oh my God, I went 3 years. That's insane. I could have never pictured me being able to go 3 days, let alone 3 years. Oh my God.
Geoff, thank you so much for sharing your story. Leah, your turn. Let's hear what you got to say.
I'm pretty consistent. I usually say a similar thing. I say, need a light, be a light. And I say that with two different punctuations, right? The first one is with a semicolon, because we know the semicolon means your story doesn't end here. And so if you're in that dark place, if you feel like this is it for you, just remember, you get to turn the page. You get to write the next chapter. You get to decide who's included in the next chapter. You get to write that. And so, if you're still in the dark, it's not the end. It's going to get better, right? And then the second way that we say that is with a question mark. Need a light, question mark, be a light, because we're all going to be in the dark at different points. And so it's just so important that when you have made it to the light, or you even just have a little bit of light to give, to be the person that you needed at that time. If you needed an intrusive leader, if you needed a brother, if you needed a friend, if you needed just whatever it is that you needed, become that person for somebody else, and shine a light for those that are still in the dark. And they really work together, because as we talked about, what was my turning point with SeaWaves was finding a purpose. So while I was working on shining light for other people, when I stopped, I realized I was illuminating my own path. I was giving myself a way forward and purpose too. I wasn't able to frame it that way initially. It was easier to do for others, but it ended up doing that for me too. So yeah, just, if you're in the dark, remember, it's not going to be that way forever. If you've made it to the light side of things now, it's your obligation to shine a little light back for those still in the dark.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Leah. Well, Leah, Geoff, it's been great having y'all on Full Speed Ahead tonight. Thank you so much for not only coming on and sharing your story, but setting the example for any leader out there, really, right? It's showing your team and the people around you that it's okay to come forward and ask for that help, because like we all said, from day one of boot camp, you're not in this alone. You got your battles next to you the entire way. You still have battles next to you. It looks a little bit different. They're not in uniform now, but they're still there. You got to reach out and ask for the help and just continue to help the people. And recovery doesn't come on day one. You're right. It takes days. It takes weeks. It's a constant battle. And so don't give up. Keep going forward. So thank y'all so much for coming on, and I appreciate you. And I can't wait to have y'all back someday.
Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
All right.
Thanks, Geoff.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Bye. All right, y'all. You heard it from Leah and Geoff yourself tonight. Like I just said, recovery is not a success, overnight success. Something you got to battle for years. It's a never-ending battle. But just know that you're not the only one that's going through it. No matter what you think it is, no matter what you think that you're the only person that's ever had this, you're not. Everybody out there somewhere, sometime, somewhere, is probably going through the same thing or has gone through the same thing that you are. And so we're all here to help you out. Even if I'm not going through the same thing you are, reach out, ask for help, because we're all in this together. We serve together. We want to see you be successful after service together, right? And like Geoff said, and part of that transition, you got to reassess who you are. You're no longer that sailor or that Marine or whoever you were in uniform serving day in and day out. While there are still parts of you still there, you're a different person now in the civilian world, and it's okay. You just got to reassess yourself, find out what you're passionate about, find out who the new you is, and find that next step forward. And again, you're not going to find it on day one. It's going to take some work, and a lot of times it's hard work. But there's people out there like Leah, there's people like Geoff, SeaWaves. Go find them. They're willing to work with you. They're willing to help you out. They've been there. They've done that. You don't have to fight it alone. So next week, we got Lori Kendall coming in. She's a mother of some service members, an author, coach, mentor, all those good things. We're going to be coming in sharing her story. So make sure you tune in next week. And we'll have another great show. So again, thanks to Leah and Geoff for coming on tonight. That is going to be the end of this show for this evening. We'll see you next Monday, 7 Central, right here on MBR, where we give veterans a voice. Thanks for tuning in to Full Speed Ahead After Battle. I'm your mental health coach, Josh McCabe, and I'll see you around. Dismissed.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25, and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.